Before you scale another business, you need to hear this. There's a founder sitting in a garage right now, broke, ignored, one bad month from losing everything, and in 5 years, his name will be on a building. What separates him from the 10,000 other founders who quit that same year isn't funding. It isn't talent. It isn't even the idea. It's something older than Silicon Valley, older than capitalism itself. It's a set of Stoic habits of successful people that most founders have never even heard of, let alone practiced. You've read the biographies. You've watched the interviews. Everyone talks about hustle, about grinding 18 hours a day, about crushing it. Nobody talks about the 2,000-year-old Roman philosophy quietly running underneath half the boardrooms in this country. The founders who last, the ones who don't flame out after their first exit. They didn't stumble onto discipline by accident. They built it, deliberately, brick by brick. The way a general prepares for a war he knows is coming. This isn't a motivational speech. This is a blueprint. 11 habits, pulled straight from the mindset of Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, and Epictetus, and mapped directly onto the founders who used them to build empires, while everyone else burned out chasing the next funding round. Stay with me until the end, because number 8 is the one habit almost no founder admits to using. And it might be the single biggest reason some companies survive a crisis that kills their competitors overnight. Let's begin. Habit 1. They treat obstacles as curriculum. Every founder hits the wall. The failed launch, the investor who ghosts them, the co-founder who walks. Most people experience that moment as an ending. Stoic founders experience it as a lesson they were always going to need. Marcus Aurelius wrote something that should be tattooed on the inside of every entrepreneur's eyelids. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. He didn't mean this as a comforting platitude. He meant it as a mechanical fact about how growth actually works. You don't get strong by avoiding resistance. You get strong because of it. Look at the founders who survived 2008, survived the dot-com crash, survived a pandemic that shut down their entire supply chain overnight. None of them had a shortcut around the obstacle. They walked straight into it and mined it for information. What is this teaching me about my business model? What is this exposing that I was too comfortable to see? That single reframe, obstacle as teacher instead of obstacle as enemy, is the first fracture point between founders who fold and founders who compound. This isn't about pretending hard things don't hurt. They do. Losing your biggest client hurts. Watching your runway shrink hurts. The Stoic habit isn't numbness, it's refusing to let the pain be the end of the sentence. There's always a next clause. And what happened next? Habit 2. They separate what they control from what they don't. Here's where most founders bleed out their energy without even realizing it. They spend hours worrying about the market, about a competitor's funding round, about whether the Fed raises rates next quarter. None of that is theirs to control. Not 1 inch of it. Epictetus built an entire philosophy around one dividing line. On one side, your judgments, your choices, your effort, your response. On the other side, everything else. Other people's opinions, outcomes you can't force, the economy, the algorithm, the competitor who just got acquired for 9 figures while you're still bootstrapping. Successful founders don't ignore the outside world. They just refuse to let it rent space in their head. They ask one brutal question before they let a worry take root. Is this mine to change right now? If the answer is no, they release it. Not because they're careless, but because carrying weight that isn't yours to carry is how good operators turn into anxious wrecks who can't make a clear decision under pressure. This is why you'll notice something strange about the founders who last decades instead of years. They seem almost eerily calm during a crisis that has everyone else in the room panicking. It's not because they don't feel the stakes. It's because they trained themselves deliberately to spend their energy only where it can actually move something. Habit 3. They rehearse the worst case before it happens. There's an old Stoic practice called premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils. It sounds bleak on paper. In practice, it's one of the most powerful risk management tools ever developed, centuries before anyone coined the term risk management. Seneca used to sit with the worst possible outcome of a decision before he made it, not to scare himself out of acting, but to strip the fear of its power by staring directly at it. What's the actual worst case if this product fails? What's the actual worst case if this investor says no? 9 times out of 10, the worst case is survivable. It's uncomfortable, it's expensive, it stings, but it doesn't end you. Founders who skip this step operate on hope instead of preparation. They get blindsided by problems a 5-minute mental rehearsal would have flagged months earlier. The founders who do this habit consistently move through uncertainty with something that looks like fearlessness from the outside, but is really just preparation nobody saw happen. That's 3 habits down, 8 more are coming, and they get sharper from here. Because the next few are about what these founders do the moment things actually start falling apart, when the pressure is real and there's no more room for theory. Habit 4. They build their morning before the world builds it for them. There's a pattern you'll find in almost every founder biography worth reading, and it has nothing to do with productivity hacks or 5 a.m. cold plunges for the sake of a headline. It's about who gets to speak first, you or your inbox. The moment you open your phone before you've had 30 seconds to think your own thoughts, you've handed the steering wheel to whoever emailed you overnight. An angry customer sets your mood. A slipping metric sets your mood. Someone else's emergency becomes the lens you view your entire day through, and you didn't even choose it. You just let it happen because the phone was closer than your own mind. Founders who last protect a window before the noise starts. It doesn't have to be elaborate. 10 minutes of silence, a walk with no headphones, 1 page of something that reminds them what they actually stand for. The specific ritual matters less than the principle behind it. You decide your state before the world tries to decide it for you. That's not a wellness trend. That's a founder refusing to start the day already on defense. Habit 5. They detach their identity from the outcome. This is the habit that breaks most first-time founders, and almost nobody warns them about it. When the business becomes the entire self, every setback stops being a business problem and becomes an identity crisis. A failed launch isn't just a failed launch anymore. It's proof you're a fraud. A bad quarter isn't a bad quarter. It's evidence you never deserved this in the first place. Stoic founders draw a hard line between what they do and who they are. The company can struggle without the founder collapsing because the founder's worth was never wired to the stock price or the churn rate to begin with. Marcus Aurelius ran an empire during a plague, a war on multiple fronts, and a betrayal from someone he trusted. And he wrote to himself constantly about staying whole, regardless of the outcome around him. Not because outcomes didn't matter. They mattered enormously. He just refused to let them define whether he was a good man. You'll see this same detachment in the founders who bounce back from a failed company and build something bigger next time, while others who tied everything to that first venture never try again. The difference isn't resilience in the abstract sense people throw around. It's a very specific decision made early. My identity is not for sale to my quarterly results. Habit 6. They practice poverty on purpose. This one sounds strange until you understand why it works. Seneca, one of the wealthiest men in Rome, used to deliberately live like he had nothing for a few days at a time. Simple food. No comfort, no servants waiting on him. He wanted to know, firsthand, that if it all disappeared tomorrow, he'd survive it. Look at the founders who make reckless, fear-driven decisions under pressure. The ones who cave to a bad deal because they can't stomach the idea of losing what they've built. Compare them to founders who negotiate from a position of actual calm, the kind that isn't performed. The second group usually has one thing in common. Somewhere along the way, they proved to themselves they could live with less. Maybe it was a lean early year. Maybe it was a deliberate choice to keep their burn rate low even after the money came in. Either way, the fear of losing it all lost its grip on them, because they'd already stood at that edge and found out they were still standing. This is a quiet form of power that almost nobody talks about publicly. Because it doesn't photograph well. Nobody posts about deliberately eating simply for a week to remind themselves what enough actually feels like. But it's one of the Stoic habits of successful people that shows up again and again once you start looking for it. In founders who negotiate from strength instead of desperation. Precisely because desperation isn't something they're carrying into the room. Habit 7. They journal like their life depends on it. Because it does. Marcus Aurelius never intended for anyone to read his private notebook. He was writing to himself, in the middle of running an empire, to think clearly under pressure that would have crushed most people. That notebook survived 2,000 years and became one of the most read books on earth, not because it was polished, but because it was honest. Founders under this kind of pressure carry an enormous amount of unprocessed noise in their heads. Every decision, every fire, every conversation that didn't go the way they hoped. Without an outlet, that noise doesn't disappear. It compounds, quietly, until it starts leaking into decisions it shouldn't touch. A short daily habit of writing it down, even 5 minutes, even messy and unfiltered, does something almost mechanical to the mind. It externalizes the chaos, so it stops running the show from inside your skull. This isn't about crafting something quotable. It's about clarity. What actually happened today? What did I control? What am I carrying that isn't mine to carry? The founders who do this consistently make sharper decisions under pressure, not because they're smarter, but because their minds aren't cluttered with unprocessed weight from 3 weeks ago. We're at the halfway point, and the next 4 habits are where this gets serious, including the one habit almost no founder admits to publicly. The one that separates the operators who survive a real crisis from the ones who don't. Habit 8. They let themselves feel it. Then they move. Here's the one nobody admits to. The image of the Stoic founder is usually painted as some emotionless machine, unbothered, unshaken, immune to fear. That image is wrong, and it's actually dangerous because it teaches young founders to suppress everything instead of processing it. Real Stoicism was never about killing emotion. Seneca grieved. Marcus Aurelius wrote about anger he felt toward people who betrayed him. The habit isn't the absence of feeling. It's refusing to let the feeling make the decision. There's a difference between sitting with the fear of losing your biggest client for 10 minutes, letting it move through you honestly, and letting that same fear write a desperate, panicked email that costs you the deal entirely. The founders who survive a real crisis, the kind that would have ended most companies, almost always describe the same private moment. A night where they let themselves fall apart a little, alone, away from the team, away from the investors. And then, the next morning, they got up and made the next right decision anyway. That's the actual habit, not suppression. Sequencing. Feel it fully, on your own terms, then act from a clear head instead of a flooded one. This is one of the Stoic habits of successful people that almost never makes it into a highlight reel, because it doesn't look impressive from the outside. It just works. Habit 9. They choose their circle like it's a risk assessment. Marcus Aurelius wrote extensively about the people around him, because he understood something founders learn the hard way. You will start to think like the 5 people you spend the most time with, whether you intend to or not. Their anxiety becomes your anxiety. Their small thinking becomes the ceiling on your own ambition, quietly, without you ever agreeing to it. Stoic founders treat their inner circle the way a risk manager treats exposure. Who in my life makes me calmer under pressure? And who makes the pressure worse? Who challenges my thinking honestly? And who just tells me what I want to hear? This isn't about cutting people off coldly. It's about being deliberate, the way you'd be deliberate about who gets access to your company's cap table. Your mental state is at least that valuable. You'll notice the founders who scale past their first success almost always upgrade their circle at some point, sometimes painfully, sometimes at the cost of old friendships that no longer fit who they were becoming. That's not betrayal. That's a founder protecting the one asset that built everything else, their own clarity. Habit 10. They say no to the wrong yes. Every founder gets flooded with opportunity the moment things start working. More partnerships, more product lines, more meetings that all sound exciting on paper. The Stoic principle underneath discipline was never about restriction for its own sake. It was about focus, protecting the one thing that actually matters from being diluted by 10 things that merely sound good. Epictetus taught that freedom isn't having unlimited options. It's having the clarity to reject the ones that don't serve your actual purpose. Founders who chase every shiny opportunity that crosses their desk usually end up running 5 mediocre things instead of one exceptional one. The founders who build something that lasts decades are almost always the ones who said no more often than they said yes, even when saying no felt like leaving money on the table. This takes a specific kind of discipline that looks almost boring from the outside. Turning down the flashy partnership, turning down the acquisition offer that would have been a quick win but a long-term distraction. It rarely gets celebrated in real time. It only becomes obvious in hindsight, years later, when the founder who stayed focused is still standing, and the one who chased every opportunity has nothing to show for any of them. Habit 11. They treat every setback as proof they're still in the game. This is the final habit, and it might be the one that ties everything else together. There's a strange truth about founders who make it. They don't experience fewer setbacks than everyone else. Often they experience more because they're operating at a scale where the stakes are bigger and the mistakes are more expensive. What separates them isn't the absence of failure, it's what failure means to them. For most people, a setback is evidence to quit. For a Stoic founder, a setback is evidence they're still playing a game worth playing. Nobody sends a rejection email to a company that isn't real. Nobody negotiates hard against a founder who isn't a threat. Every hard moment is, in a strange way, confirmation that the work matters enough to resist. This is the final thread that runs through every one of these Stoic habits of successful people. The thing that turns a philosophy written 2,000 years ago into something a founder can actually use on a Tuesday morning when the numbers aren't working and the team is looking to them for an answer. It was never really about ancient Rome. It was about building a mind that doesn't break just because the road did. If any part of this hit something true for you, the way you build might be about to change. Give this a like if you're serious about becoming that kind of founder. Share it with someone building something right now who needs to hear it. And subscribe to Stoic Founder, because this is exactly the kind of thing we dig into every single week. See you in the next one.